This digital world has connected us all, but it's also created barriers. We desperately need to remember how to connect authentically and how to create more meaningful connections. Now, let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk. Because if you think I'm not talking to you, think again. It's quite simple. You need to connect with the right people to grow your business and theirs. And today's guest is all over this topic.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jolles.
Today's guest, Steve Spiro, started his first company right out of college in advertising. Additionally, he holds a 4th degree black belt in karate and 1st degree in jiu-jitsu, including having his own karate studio. He eventually pivoted from advertising into technology and now is a business automation consultant. Steve is a master connector with over 30,000 LinkedIn connections and does a LinkedIn live broadcast every week called The Master Connector Show. Make sure to check out his latest book, The Tao of a Master Connector, The Way an Introvert Became a Master Connector. Happy to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Steve.
What's going on, Rob? Hey, what's going on, everyone? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct.
There you
What's
go.
going on? I appreciate being on with you here, sir.
There you go. Got a little Casey Kasem going there. That sounds good.
There you go. That's it. Boy, I think we just half the audience probably doesn't know what the heck we're talking about. But yes, we do. You and I do.
Well, I would like to say they still play old Casey Kasem, but all right, for the half that missed it, if you've ever heard of a top 40, that's pretty much the guy who put it on the map.
Yeah,
all right, let's dive in. Okay. You talk about building authentic connections that go beyond surface level interactions, and I agree with you. But then I am, and believe me, envious. But I'm envious of those 30,000 LinkedIn connections. Do you separate the two, or can you be authentic with all your connections?
That's a great question. Yeah, listen. So you're either authentic or you're not. I believe you have to be the same person everywhere you are, right? So I like to think I'm authentic all the time. What I think the essence of your question is how do you stay authentic? How do you connect with 30,000 and be authentic? And so the answer is as much as you can, right? Like, so in my situation, I post every day, and I have a LinkedIn live show that you pointed out that I do. So the Master Connector Show, and I'm constantly putting out content that expresses my authenticity, right? So there's information going out that shares what I'm about. My LinkedIn bio is very authentic. It speaks about my being learning disabled, dyslexic, talks about being picked on and bullied as a kid, right? So there's authenticity sprinkled in my content and things about me. But then, what I do is I reach out to everybody daily, and not everybody at 30,000, but like anyone that connects with me or accepts my connect request, they're getting a message that says, "Hey, let's get on a call." And in that call, I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to share some of my story. I want to hear their story. That's, and then also throughout the year, I'm reaching out with, whether it's the happy birthday, congrats on your job change, and those conversations are leading to LinkedIn. What I like to call connect calls. So again, on those calls, I'm being authentic and sharing some of those things about me and vulnerability. So yeah, it's just something I do, right? When I meet somebody, randomly, because I meet 3 strangers every day. You may know that, but same thing. I'm being authentic there as well. So it's just who I am. And I encourage anyone, if you want to have real, true, meaningful connections, start with being authentic. Start with being others focused, being self-focused, and being guarded, which I was for many, many years, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'm going to jump into that. But I'll tell you something. You do walk the walk, because you and I connected through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I don't know did I reach out to you? You reached out to me. I don't know, because whoever did it, you reached out again and said, "Hey, I'd like to know you, let's jump on a call." Exactly what he said. And we had a nice conversation, and here we are. But you do walk that walk.
Appreciate that.
No,
yeah,
it's true.
It's important. It's important. Listen, again, who you are in the dark, it should be, who you are in the public. I remember a mentor said to me, he likes to live his life as if, what he did last night or any at any time could show up on the New York Times front cover, right? So
Yeah.
you got to just got to be who you are.
Yeah. I saw a quote one time, and I'm going to mangle it, but you'll know where I'm going, which is I want to be the kind of person my dog thinks I am, you know?
Ah.
And when I saw that one time, I went, well, that is true, because I think my
Yeah,
dog really sees me as as a very authentic person. There's
there you go.
no real games there. So that's what I'm aspiring to. All right. You mentioned a moment ago that you're kind of an inward guy, inward focused.
Yeah,
But you write about becoming other focused. I'd never heard that term before. Now walk me through
yeah,
that.
yeah. So a couple things. Number one, I've had a mentor for quite a few years who's seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and he saw like this part of me, and I was only able to get so far with people, with building relationships, with building teams. And he said there was something off about you, he would say to me, and he couldn't put his finger on it. And later, as I've read a bunch, and one of my favorite books is The Go Giver. It's the basic idea, right? Without using that word, being a go giver, being others focused, right? Because most people, the tendency, or a lot of people, especially a guy like me who's been broken and wounded for many years, not anymore, thank God. But when you're wounded and broken, the only thing you're thinking about is self-preservation, protection, and you're inward focused, right? So, and you can't really help anybody if you're worried about getting hurt because you're already hurt already. So I was inward focused. So the minute I started to get healed and become others focused, that's what happened. And I started to become, much more capable of being able to help other people. And I took my eyes off of myself, and I heard this phrase, we've heard it from Zig Ziglar. I think he said it. Maybe he may have coined it. He may have taken it from someone else. He said, if you want, you'll get what you want if you help enough people get what they want, right? If you'll get what you want in life, basically. And I'm paraphrasing, butchering the phrase, but you get the idea, right?
Mhm.
People don't know, they don't know, they don't care how much you know, they want to know how much you care, right? Those kinds of things. And that's all the essence of being others focused, is just really, really wanting to help others. At the end of every connect call that I make, I legitimately try to throw out 3 or 4 add values with no quid. I can never get the phrase
Quid
quid
pro
pro quo.
quo.
Yeah, that. Yeah. Nothing. I'm not looking for any return. And I found that I've had the best 3 or 4 years of my entire life financially, because I've been over others focused, and I've taken my eyes off of myself. And I'm not saying, okay, I'm going to do this knowing that the universe, God, higher power is going to reward me, but it's a result of what happens for sure. Yeah.
Do you mind if I just double back for a second, and
Yeah.
we can just nick this if you want. But you use the words broken and wounded.
Yeah.
Uh, can you give me that story kind of in a comfortable way for you? But I didn't know that.
Yeah. Listen, I'm the authentic guy. So this is something I speak about a lot, right? And listen, I had my accomplishments. You read it in my bio, right? Martial arts background, had my advertising company right out of college at 22, 23. So yeah, I had some things that I had accomplished, but I was still really wounded. And maybe it was because I was picked on and bullied. Maybe it's the dyslexia, growing up and getting beat red when I have to read out loud in class, and people would laugh at me because I would stutter. And it was like, whatever. But I was wounded. Maybe it's being, parents broke up, back in the time when that was kind of taboo, and, they were divorced, and, my mom had to reinvent herself and go back to college, or actually go to college, not even go back to college, go to college to get a career so she could, kind of potentially raise her kids decently financially. So maybe, and there was some rejection there, and I was the firstborn, so it was kind of like the one kid, and then there was sort of rejection there. Whatever it is, I'm not trying to, I don't want anyone feeling sorry for me, but that's the hand I was dealt at. Asking my first girl out, and then she, getting rejection, and all these things happened to me, and it just wounded me. And I grew up, and a big part of it was I read a book called Wild at Heart. It was a game changer for me, and it talked about how a young boy needs a rite of passage. And my dad was always working. He owned a liquor store, constantly working, and never was around. And when he was home, he was sleeping. So didn't have that father. I think my father played ball with me once, never came to any of my Little League baseball games. And again, I'm not trying to have anyone feel bad at me, but those were things I didn't have anyone affirming me. And so I was wounded. I was broken. And for years, the way I covered it up was I stayed busy. I commuted into high school from the Bronx into New York City, took a subway in, right? There was no, most people go to high school in their neighborhood. I didn't. I went to college, similar. I didn't have the dormitory experience. I commuted into college. So but I didn't have any connections with people. And I think that was on purpose. I didn't know it at first. I just swear the way it was, but it was because it was easier to block people out. Hey, I want to get together. I'm busy, because I just didn't know how. And I was afraid the more you got to know me, the more you'd see how bad and wounded and broken I was. And I didn't want that to happen. So that's where I was for a lot of years, all the way into my adulthood, for sure.
Wow. Well, there's a phrase I've always liked, Steve, called "We all walk with a limp," and I think it may be a biblical reference, although I'm not quoting it as such right now. But I've determined in my life that we all do have our own limps, and there's only two people that don't have a limp. It's either somebody who has no capacity whatsoever to have empathy for another human being. Could be somebody very young, or it's somebody who's not telling the truth. And but we all have a limp. And what you just done a beautiful job doing is you just illustrated basically what we do with our limp. We either work with it and make it who we are, or we try and hide it, and we can't really hide it. And it changes our lives, and it doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away, but you can actually heal. And that's what I've learned, right? There was a huge hole in my heart that needed to be mended and healed, and you can. It just takes work. And quite frankly, I'll say this: the more I became others focused, to tie it back to the first topic, the more, and I started to really be a blessing to people in their lives, and I heard good feedback, it really changed my self-worth. There's nothing better than somebody telling you, "Hey, man, you really changed my life. You really have helped me." What I've learned from my mentor is, and there's a lot of versions of self-esteem, but he said what true self-worth and self-esteem is not what you think about me, not what I think about me, but it's what I think you think of me. Right. Ponder that for a little bit, right? And when you hear that feedback, that loop of people coming back to you because you blessed them, it so raises you up.
Yeah. And you didn't use the words, but I'm going to use them if you don't mind. And you can say Rob wrong, but you were almost describing when you were growing up and as a young man, almost that classic imposter syndrome. People are going to find out about whatever. And and I love the way you articulated this, by helping others and then receiving that feedback. I think it probably did a great deal to help you kind of overcome that and say, I'm not an imposter. I'm actually a genuine human being and an authentic one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, certainly there was a lot of growth along the way. Mm-hmm. I've read a ton of books, full disclosure, didn't read the books. Audible's been a game changer. I have read prior to Audible. So hard for me to comprehend. It takes forever because I'll have to read a page 3 or 4 times to get the comprehension on it. But Audible's been a great game changer. And so doing the work and growing me and now I believe that I add value for people because I've poured so much in, right? It's hard to pour from an empty glass or half empty glass, right? So you got to fill your glass, I've been told, to overflow so you can pour into other people, right? They say the cliche of, before you go help somebody in an airplane, put the mask on first for yourself, because you got to be in a good place before we can help others. And so it took some of that. So I don't want anyone feeling bad for me, but I was the guy I didn't even know if there was imposter for me, because I just knew I sucked. Like there was no trying to be like I didn't suck. Like I was the last to get picked, in basketball and, whatever sports, and sometimes they didn't even want to pick me ever. So that's who I was. So I wasn't confused. Yeah, I'm trying to be this great guy. I knew I was not this guy. You know what I mean? So but as I got older, sure, there's been that imposter syndrome, because now you're trying to succeed in the business world, and you're like, man, I don't know. And that was me for a lot of years. So you're right. Later in life, as I got into that advertising role, and I started to have people that worked for me, and yeah, it was, you feel like, should I be here? Right. Because I had that self-doubt all along.
Yeah. Well said. And for people who are listening, my personal belief is that the story you're hearing and the impact it's had on your life just reminds us all that when you've gone through struggle, it toughens you up. I mean, I have. I'm not naming any names. So I know people who sometimes things have come to them very easily. They have that mind that doesn't have to read it 3 times. They get it. They read it once. It's all there.
Yeah.
And yet that weakens them in certain ways. And those that scrap and hustle and grind and read it 3 times and then have to read it a fourth and then do an extra credit project to bring up that C+ on that multiple choice test that you were never going to get an A on, and stay and never miss a class and do all the other things. It may not translate to an A. It'll translate to a B, by the way. It'll work. But where it translates after that is intriguing to me.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to say this, and I might be misquoting which president. It might have been Truman when he took over the presidency after, the previous president passed. It might have been him, but when he was assembling his cabinet and his staff was asking for parameters, he wanted somebody that had failed at a lot of things, because he wanted somebody who had been battle tested, and somebody that knew how to deal with kind of challenges, and didn't just, the ones that, things go super well for, when they're battle tested, they're quick to fall away because they just don't have the thick skin to deal with it. And so, yeah, I am so grateful that I've had all these things go through that I've had to go through, because it's made me stronger. Again, the cliche, whatever kills you makes you stronger. Napoleon Hill, right? In every adversity lies a seed of equal or greater benefit, right? My dyslexia and learning disability was great because it sort of trained me to be kind of innovative and creative in my thinking, to get over challenges, because I wasn't learning the way the average person learned. So I had to figure out other ways. And I've learned that creativity and being able to be, a creative problem solver has been very valuable in my business profession, for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you a 30-second story, and it won't be any longer.
Sure.
So I want to hear your story, but I'm going to tell you a story I've never told before. 20 years ago or so, we had a fire. I don't like talking about it because no one was hurt, no one was harmed, and it's a very private thing to me, but you sort of inspired me to tell this tale very quickly. When I say no one was hurt, no one was harmed, we were fine. Now, to give you an idea of the fire, we were out of our house for over a year, pretty much everything lost. And yet, I had a 14, a 13, and an 8-year-old living with us. And I saw it as an amazing opportunity to mentor them through what happens in life. Bullies are really scary. But the first time you get swatted in the nose, it hurts and it may bleed a little bit. But the second time somebody puts their arms up, it's not quite as scary anymore. I already know it's not pleasant, but I know I'm going to get back up and be okay. To be able to mentor them through that, I thought was almost life altering for them. And in a sense, well, my dad said it well. He said, I wouldn't want a fire, but if I ever had one, I'd want yours, because of what we gained from it. So it's just another example of, it's funny, I'm getting emotional telling this story, but it's another example of how we can take challenges and, they define us, but in such a positive way if we think it out properly.
Yeah. Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Rob, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but have you gotten emotional in other episodes that you've done before? Or is this sort of a first for you, or one of many?
No, I rarely get emotional in an episode.
So the reason I'm saying that is I want you to see, not you, but the listeners, what the power of being authentic. I'm sharing about myself And all of a sudden, Rob tells a story and he gets emotional. And that's the power of number one, storytelling, the power of being authentic. It breaks barriers down. You started by the intro on talking about breaking barriers in this complex digital era. We're on two sides of a screen right now, but yet we feel like brothers from another mother. Yeah, we got the commonality of the shaved head, but we've got this commonality because we bonded through being able to share some stories and be able to connect that way. So there's power in that authenticity.
There sure is. And hats off to you, Master Connector, because I'm not sure how that story ended up coming out of me, but it won't happen again. By golly, I could see my dad, who was with a longtime Marine, going, "What's going on there?"
There you go.
All right. Let me get back up on the horse here. It's really about overcoming obstacles. And we both had them. You've already shared a couple, but you have one in particular. Exchange with me a little bit. Give me an example of an obstacle. I mean, I've got the learning disability. Is there another obstacle that you can point to that maybe shaped things in your world a little bit?
Oh man, Rob, there's so many that I could think of, but I remember there was a gentleman in my karate studio, and I tell a lot about this. There's not a lot about this, but a lot of stories from the martial arts, life experience in my book, The Tao of a Master Connector, and I share some of this story as well. But there was a guy in my studio, who was different color than me, and apparently what happened to him, one of his arms was paralyzed, and it was a guy that looked like my color that hit while he was riding a bike. This man, hit him while he was driving. I don't think it was on purpose, but it created his one arm to be paralyzed. So he had this sort of hate for people that look like me. So we're in the class together, and he had these hands that look like the size of hams, right. like they were huge. And he was just, hand, I should say, one hand. He would come at you like he was literally going to kill you. And I initially was extremely intimidated, but I started to work at it. And then I started to realize, he has one arm. So if I could get in close quickly and pin that arm down, this is not a martial arts training I'm talking about, but it's a life lesson that I learned. If I could get that arm down, pin it, then I get close in on him because I'm shorter and I'm short. So, my limbs are shorter. Therefore, I could do what I got to do. And I eventually broke that barrier, that fear that you were speaking about before. I broke the barrier, and I actually want to being able to dominate him moving forward. And there was all sorts of lessons in that. And that was literally kind of number one, breaking through fear, just doing it, feel the fear, do it anyway, but also kind of coming up with innovative ways or what's going to be the way to solve that problem to get through that fear. So that was just one example of many, but yeah, there've been a lot of challenges, including getting my nose busted, learning not to duck into my sensei's knee as he came up to me, came up with a roundhouse kick. The guy was 6'5", 300 pounds. He was as fast as lightning. But that was not a fun story. But by the way, even though my nose was broke, I stayed to the whole class. I didn't, I figured, I had gotten my eyebrows split, all sorts of stitches on my face. They can't put your nose in a cast, whatever. So I just straightened it myself because it was over here basically, and I just kept going. I didn't fight anymore, but I stayed in class. My gi was all like red from blood. It was crazy, but just I learned to persevere, fight through it. Don't just give up. Never quit. If you don't quit, you win. So many life lessons I've learned.
Yeah, you just taught me a lesson. I thought you're not supposed to make contact while you're fighting like that. But no, not in your dojo, huh?
Not in my dojo.
You wearing headgear or anything? Did it matter?
We wore nothing. They encouraged you to wear a cup. It was too uncomfortable, so I didn't even wear a cup. Okay, so this is like old school. This is like we're talking. I started training in '83, and and my sensei who started training in the '70s. It was even more brutal back then, but then eventually, it's insurance and things. They at the tail end they were starting to encourage the styrofoam, whatever they're made of, hand things and foot things and headgear and all that, but we didn't do it coming up the ranks. We weren't supposed to hit in the head, but oops.
Yeah. No, he needs you in the head. He didn't really hit you. He just needs your
And
nose.
I should have ducked. I shouldn't have ducked because
Yeah.
he wasn't aiming for my head. I ducked into his knee, basically.
Your fault. I'm well programmed there. I can think of a time. I actually one time got laid off because I was trumpeting to the world that I'm not much of a writer. I'm a speaker. And when the company lost their contract, they needed writers for RFPs. And I went and I took some writing classes, and now I write books and things like you. Can you give me an example? So I sort of took that weakness and decided I'm going to make it a strength. Give me an example of where maybe one of your weaknesses has now become your strength.
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to communicate and connect with people, right? I didn't have any.
Yeah, that's true.
And now, not just a writer, but a inspirational speaker, on big stages. And I mean that shy and introvert, the guy didn't have any relationships, any skills. I had the personality of a brick. My business partner in the advertising company one day comes to me, he says, "Steve, I got good news." I said, "What's that?" He's like, "The company is going to pay for you to go to a course. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie." Okay, great. Thanks. Basically what you're saying is your people skills suck. You're alienating the people that work for us. We're going to get you to a course. I had no people skills. And I was the guy, eventually I became this kind of tell you like it is, I'd rather hit you than talk to you, right? In the martial arts, I didn't know how to communicate and connect. So today, the weird part, being shy and introverted, I had one friend growing up, basically one best friend, and he moved away, and he moved pretty far on the other side of the Bronx. They don't call it the Bronx; it's Riverdale. It's Riverdale, not the Bronx. But he moved there, and it was like 45-minute bike ride over to him. And I saw him that one time, and it felt like he didn't even care that I even visited him. So we didn't even see each other anymore. So my friends growing up was Captain Kirk from Star Trek, Ralph Cramden from the Honeymooners, right? Felix Unger from The Odd Couple. Those were my best friends growing up. I just stayed in my room and watched TV. But now to be able to speak to thousands of people and communicate and connect and make somebody cry in a podcast, go figure.
Hey,
right?
I didn't cry. I just got a little teary.
Yeah,
I deny everything.
No, but you know what I'm saying. But maybe I made people cry by hitting them in the head. But back in the martial arts days, but being able to connect and not necessarily make them cry, but you could feel the emotion starting to come out. That is, I think, such a superpower from what it was to where it is today.
Right. And you're talking to another professional speaker, so I clearly know what you're talking about there. Let's bring it in for a landing a little bit. Just a couple quick things. One, tell me a little bit about the Master Connector show on LinkedIn. Okay. Give me some info on that.
So we're Wednesdays at 1 p.m. EST for a 30-minute show. My co-host Rob Genovese and I, he's a friend of 25 years. We started it in December of 2020. We're at this stage of this recording, we're at episode 188 coming up this week. We've had incredible guests on our show, Dr. Dre and some incredible people. And it's been a wild journey. And we speak on the mission of our show is to be the light, uplift, inspire, and encourage. We speak on the pillars of our show are being others focused, being authentic, having grit, and building community and growing connections. Pretty much everything we just spoke about today, right? Same pillars of the book that I wrote, and same pillars of what I speak about. But it's been great. We're excited. It's a great opportunity for us to serve our community and really, continue to empower and grow. Help people grow and become the best version of themselves.
Yeah, and Master Connector over here. I actually don't do a whole lot of guesting on shows that much anymore. I've got enough to do with my own, but I believe might be on that Master Connector show. We talked about it.
And I'm excited to have you on the show. Yeah. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up for sure.
So I'll be looking forward to that. And man,
cool
getting
people.
You emotional. If I can pull it off, that is my singular goal.
Listen,
I'll try.
That's okay. I'm good with that now. Back in the day, in fact, one day I'll do a TEDx talk. It's going to be on our weakness, there's power. And I believe it's a great message for men because men have a tendency, we're programmed to be very stoic, very don't show your emotions, right? And I think there is a value of being able to show those vulnerabilities, those weaknesses. But anyway, so masterconnector.show is our website if you want to learn more about it.
Well, not that I actually really got emotional here. And anybody listening, you don't tell anybody. Tell no one what happened.
Or I'm going to come get you. I'm going to come get you. And my knee will be in your nose, okay?
Well, that'll be legitimate. I don't mind getting a little teary-eyed if you break my nose. But anyway, listen, I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. And thank you for Master Connector for bringing that out of me. How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way is if you want to hire me as a speaker, it's spiro-global.com. That's my speaker website. I also have stevespiro.com as a sort of a general one that has all sorts of links that you can go to. It is a digital business card, but stevespiro.com, Spiro is the last name. And then find me on LinkedIn. You know, you could be 330,001 if you want, right? So, but you're going to listen, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you're going to get a message like Rob did. Let's jump on a call. So be aware. If you don't want that, then don't connect with me on LinkedIn, but I hope you do.
Yeah. And the beauty is, and I just one more thing on that. I get people every now and then that want to talk to me, but it's okay. What are you selling me today? He's not selling. He's just wants to connect. He is the master connector.
And add value. Yeah. My feeling is that why be connected unless you know something really about the person other than what's written in their profile? It's just different. Like why? Like, I'm almost rather, I should probably start doing it. I might start just unconnecting with people that don't want to get on a call with me because what value is it? We don't have a relationship. Why are we going to be on LinkedIn together when they cap you out with connections with 30,000. Now I can have followers, but connections only 30,000 as well.
Only. All right. Well, I'm not so sure I'd give them their walking papers, but I have taken people off my LinkedIn who I've tried to connect with others and have said, no, I don't want to, in other words, okay, Steve, and I'm trying to do that. Could you connect me with Steve? I reach out to Steve. He says, no, I don't want to connect. I go, well, then not sure why we're connected, and I will get rid of them for that. So I'm not that far off. Anyway, listen, appreciate having you on the show. You've said it all. We went around the block and back again. And anyway, I'm glad you connected with me. So thank you.
As well. I appreciate you, Rob.
All right, man. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.